You're listening to the G-Spot podcast with Bri
and Alex,
where we dive into personal growth, lifestyle, relationships, and everything in between.
Chill with us every Wednesday for good vibes and real talk.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the G-Spot podcast, and happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, y'all. Welcome back. As you can see, we are now officially, well, if you can see, we are a video podcast. Finally, it is happening. I know we've been talking about it for a while. And
Yes.
so now it is here. Very, very excited about it.
We have arrived.
Hopefully you can see us on Spotify video podcast.
Yes, but that's, I don't know how new it is, but I found out that you can put videos on Spotify, and I was like, oh, now's our chance. So we will be doing that. We will be adding it to Spotify, and yeah, I'm excited. So today, our topic is about just the paralyzing feeling where you're faced with like two decisions and you don't know where to go. I don't know. It's a lot of like I don't knows, and sometimes you end up doing absolutely nothing, and sometimes you might miss a big opportunity because of that fear and because of the unknown. So we're going to get into that a little bit today, but first we wanted to start you off with a positive quote.
I wanted to kick off with a quote from, if you're a fan of Glennon Doyle Untamed, then the quote will be familiar. But this is how it goes. I love myself now. Self-love means that I have a relationship with myself built on trust and loyalty. I trust myself to have my own back, so my allegiance is to the voice within. I'll abandon everyone else before I abandon myself. I'll disappoint everyone else before I'll disappoint myself. I'll forsake all others before I'll forsake myself. Me and myself, we are till death do us part.
Amen.
So really just about being true to yourself and ignoring all the naysayers and maybe people in your life who you think that their opinion is more valuable than your own. And just about following your own heart and your own voice and doing what's best for you. So,
yes, and that is what this podcast is about in general. Living your authentic life, boo-boo.
Exactly.
So that's perfect. I love it.
So let's kick off today's topic.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to start off with like asking you, have you ever felt that moment where you're like frozen in time and you're like, I don't know what to do, and maybe you just didn't do anything, or, like when has that last been so impactful for you?
Oh my gosh, that happens to me all the time, all throughout my life. That is the story of my life. It's so I think because I am a creative individual, I have a lot of interests. There are so many things that I find interesting that I could really see myself doing. And I get so caught up in what if I go this way and what if I go that way, or what if I decide to do this, that I never actually get to pull the trigger. Yes. And it can be really, really hard and debilitating to have so many options that I'm into, or even just two options. I know it's rough.
It can drive you crazy, right?
It can drive you crazy. Just not knowing, like, if I take this route, how is it going to go? Or if I take this one, maybe I'll be more successful. But what ifs is such a fucking game. They kill you. They kill you.
It really is a game. You're gambling. That's kind of what it is. You're gambling. But that's the reality of it. It's like, it's a gamble. You cannot know the future. You don't know 5 seconds from now what's going to happen.
Right.
I don't know. And I've felt this even with the smallest decisions. If it's like two products that I'm between and buying, it's like, okay, well, I gotta weigh the pros and cons. Oh, what about this one? And weighing pros and cons isn't a bad thing. I think it's an okay thing. But once it starts like being this anxiety driven thing where it's like, oh, well, I don't know, so I'm just going to do a shit ton of research before I make a decision. But sometimes you don't have that amount of time. Sometimes you shouldn't be putting in all your effort and mental energy into something small that you can just be like, fuck it, let's just try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll return it. Like, what, I'm trying to just get that in my head instead of like, this is the one decision and this is the one product and I can't return it and I can't do anything about it if it goes wrong. Like, what is that? Like,
what is it?
And honestly, though, I feel like that this whole concept is actually fairly new to humanity. I mean, think about it. We had way less career choices just a few years ago. Before social media, before podcasting, before whatever. There were way less routes to take, and even like, you know, imagine like caveman times. Like, come
Yeah,
on,
cave.
you're gonna go pick some berries,
Or you're gonna hunt. You got
or you're
two,
gonna hunt. That's the two. And if
and
you're
your
a woman,
gender
I can
was you.
take a
Yeah,
guess on what you're gonna do.
those were the good old days. Take us
So
back.
for real, I just give me my loincloth is what I'm trying to say. I'm ready for the loincloth. I'm ready to go back. But really, if you think about it, like, we shouldn't feel bad about ourselves being confused about these decisions, because like, we take forever to evolve, like, mentally.
Hmm.
It's such a new concept to our brains. We're like having all of these things like, oh, well, what if you do this, and what if you do that, and now you have to go to college, and then what if you don't go to college, and what if you don't do that, and how we try to deal with that situation, I guess, is just like knowing in your heart you cannot know either outcome. You
Mm.
cannot know either outcome. You you can choose this path. It can go terribly wrong, but at least you learned and you failed, and then you can take the other path. That's
Mhm.
another option. It doesn't have to be the be all end all, is what I'm trying to say. And this is me also talking to myself, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm preaching to myself too, because I have to really drill this into my head sometimes when I have to make a decision. And have you missed that? Like, is there an opportunity that you almost missed because of this, like, stuck in limbo sort of feeling?
Yeah. I can think of one
Has it
immediately, and
happened?
I've probably mentioned it on the podcast because it was such a like it was such a moment for me where I was like, then I think I am on the right track. I just don't know how
Mhm.
to move forward on things, you know, and the lack of not knowing is what really holds me back from making a decision. Um
Right.
this was like a few years back, like talking about like 2014, 15ish. I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, I was like really into the idea of creating an app. By the way, I
Oh.
never did it.
Mhm.
Um, of any kind. But I
Totally
was
fine.
like hashing out some ideas with a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine, and I was like, gosh, it would be so cool. And I was single, obviously.
Yeah.
And I say obviously because what I'm about to say, I thought it'd be so cool if there was a dating app
Right.
um, that linked your Spotify account to the dating
Mhm.
app, and it would match you based on music selection, like based
Mhm.
on your taste of
Super cool.
music. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that would be freaking awesome. And literally like 3 months later, um, I saw like on I forget where I saw it, but Bumble had did just
Mhm.
that. So Bumble was already a dating app back then, and then they just integrated Spotify with it, and I was like,
Of
not in the
course.
same way that I wanted, that I was thinking, but
Right.
in a way where you can see people's playlists and types
Music
of music
tastes.
on
Yeah.
their profile.
Right.
But I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I was so blown away. I was like,
Isn't
my
that
friend was like,
insane?
"At least that shows you like you're kind of on the right track with, you know, where things are headed." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Damn it."
Isn't that crazy? Like, with someone else, and I believe that episode, if y'all want to listen to it, it's one of our earlier episodes where we talk about acting on your creativity and acting on your ideas. And this is a good example of, like, it's ideas can be taken up so fast, right, by somebody
Mhm.
else, and there's ideas floating in the air all the time. Someone's going to take it and act on it, which is fine. Maybe it wasn't for you, maybe it wasn't your
Mhm.
path to take.
Mhm.
But those, like, for me, there's been multiple opportunities that I could have missed just due to my fear. Like, I'm always, and I was just talking to Nick about this recently. I was like, I know how it can be sometimes. I'm very like, well, what if this happens? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes you just want someone to tell you, to give you a decision, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
No one knows you better than yourself. Like, you can only make that decision for yourself, whatever it is. Whether it's like, should I stay in this job? Should I get a new job? Blah, blah, blah. And I do my pros and cons, right? Sometimes that just doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just based out of fear. And, like, one of the, I guess, simpler examples is, it would have been my first time traveling to Peru. We did like a 5-day hike. We went to Machu Picchu, whatever. It was really fun. But I almost didn't go. I almost didn't go because I was afraid, one, of like, oh, do I have enough cash on it? I was a college student, broke college
Yeah.
student. So I was like, well, do I even have enough money on hand? Like, do I do like all these questions? Well, I don't know, I'm not so comfortable on a plane. Like, what happens if the fucking plane crashes and I die? Like, what
The
happens
what
if I die
ifs.
up in the mountains? What
Hmm.
if I get sick? All these anxiety-ridden things going through your head, and I could have stayed home, and I could have
Hmm.
never experienced what I
Missed a great
experienced. And I
opportunity,
could have
right?
missed that giant travel opportunity that was right in front of me,
Hmm.
and
Life
I
changing.
literally, like, that's memories. Those are memories that are going to stay with me forever. And
Hmm.
that's happened to me when I switched my job too. I was second guessing. I was like, oh, what if I just stay with this one and then do like creative stuff? But then I can't really do creative stuff if I don't feel comfortable with my job. So it's a lot of that thinking going on in your brain. And I totally feel that. But ultimately, your gut knows which decision to go with. And if you have time to make a pros and cons list, do it. Don't be
Hmm.
stuck on it. But if it helps you decide, do that.
Hmm.
But just make the decision and
Right.
stick with it. And that brings me into oh, I'm sorry, you say something.
Yeah, I feel was gonna say, I feel like a lot of the times the problem with pulling the trigger and narrowing down like your choices,
Mhm.
um, is somebody else in your head,
Mhm.
is voices in your head, or a family member, a significant other. What's going to make them happy? If I did this, is that what's best
Right.
for the family? Do you think that I'll get shamed for it? Is that what my grandparents would have wanted, my parents would have wanted? I know they've always wanted me to do this and this and that. This other option is more aligned with it, but maybe it's not necessarily where my heart is at. But if I did this,
Right.
maybe I'd struggle a little more. That is always a factor. And I think about that
Mhm.
when me and my husband are, and this is such a small example, but when me and my husband are deciding what are we going to eat for dinner, we will play the I don't know, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? For
Right.
a hot
Yeah.
minute. And I
Yep.
just want to be like, you just choose, like just say what you want to
Make a
say, just
decision.
pick what
Yeah.
you want to pick.
Yeah.
But both of us don't want to make a wrong decision to disappoint the
Mhm.
other. That's
Right,
all it
it's the
is.
fear of the wrong decision.
Right,
It's
exactly.
totally
Instead
it's
of
the
just
fear.
saying what you want to eat, what you truly want to eat, you're taking fully in consideration of the other person only, and you aren't
Mhm.
going to speak on what you want. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what happens when making a lot of other choices in your life, bigger choices, career choices,
Yeah.
educational choices. You're listening to somebody else and you have only them.
Yeah.
You're only considering them, is what I'm trying to say, without
Yeah.
putting yourself as a factor. And that is really, really a really, really tough place. And
Yes.
it's hard to overcome that
For
example.
sure. And like, like you were saying, like, and the buildup of these small decisions and like not trusting yourself to just listen to what you need and what you want.
Hmm.
Sometimes those decisions can build up over time, and like they'll make you unhappy because you haven't been following what your true decision was going to be if it weren't for other people influencing that decision, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Um like, for example, if I want to record a YouTube video. Like, sometimes um I will put other people in front of myself, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'll go to that thing. I'll go to that thing." Okay. Instead of what I'm supposed to do if I'm actually doing like a creative endeavor, like, let me sit down and record the podcast instead of going out to brunch with this person. I'm going to have to make a
Right.
sacrifice. There's two decisions. Do I hang out with this person, or do I focus on this long-term goal that I have? And
Mhm,
that's a small decision, but it's a
mhm,
big decision if you think about it, because
mhm.
you never know what'll happen with those tiny decisions because they build up. And if you're like, well, and you always put it off, well, I'll keep going. Okay, I'm gonna go to brunch
You're
with this person again. All right, I'm gonna go
distracting
chill.
yourself.
I'm gonna chill with Nick, and I'm gonna like watch Netflix instead of like write a script for my next video. And
Mhm,
those sorts of decisions are really what count in the end, is really the small ones too. Like the big ones, yes, that causes so much anxiety, but the little ones that don't cause that much anxiety can cause you a lot of anxiety down the line if you're like, oh shit, I didn't act on what I was supposed to do. Like, recently I was in a sort of a mental rut, like a couple of weeks ago, in knowing that I'm the type of person to really struggle in making decisions. Some of my little decisions that I'm not sticking to and dedicating myself to, that was bothering me. Like my goals of like weight loss, and I need to get more social, I need to travel more, I need to stick with content creation. Those are like the main things, right? And why I was feeling down on myself was I was like, well, I'm saying all these things, but like, am I really actually making the decision to stick with them instead of those tiny decisions of like let's stay in and do this instead of me going to the gym. Those little decisions that add up.
Mhm.
And so I started this like 60 days of me challenge, to focus on those specific goals, like, okay, weight loss. So working out 5 days a week minimum, which not luckily, I have been sticking to that because I'm holding myself accountable now. And it's all part of the dedication and making a decision, because it's like you're not really deciding. You're not really hard on a decision if you're wishy-washy.
Right.
Like only if you're all in, that's when you know you've made the decision. Because if your decision is to start a weight loss journey and actually lose 20 pounds, let's say, but you keep getting snacks, like you keep not going to the gym, obviously you're not dedicated to that decision. You
Right.
don't really believe that that's the decision that you're taking. Your decision is to relax and eat in, which is way easier.
Mhm.
I mean, eat out. But those are the little things that I think are important too in these decision making moments. The
Right.
small things and the big things that cause so much anxiety, like I mentioned.
Mhm.
But those little things are really what was bugging me too, because those little things add up to big things. So
Right.
that 60 days of me challenge, like I've been working out 5 days a week. I've been tracking my goals. A travel, I have booked a trip
Where?
out
Where
of
to?
out of country.
What?
And so we booked a trip to Italy. We booked a trip to Italy because of the fear before, like when COVID started, I was afraid to travel. Our flights had gotten canceled and all that crap in 2020. And since then, I was afraid to travel, like not only because of like flights and actual plane rides, but the diseases, you know,
Mhm.
the virus, I mean. So that fear had held me back. So I was making the decision before to be like too comfortable. And I was making a decision to be like, nah, I'm okay with not doing it.
Right.
But deep inside, I know I'm not okay not doing
Not
it.
doing it.
So that little rut that I had made me realize that that was just out of fear. There's no
Yeah.
logic behind it. I'm living in my story.
Mhm.
Like there's story and then there's reality. And a
Right.
lot of the times we live in our story when we're faced with like two path roads,
Mhm.
or when we're faced with multiple decisions. We think of what it's going to look like and what it could look like, what could go wrong or whatever. So living in your story is like a big thing that we all do that we can try to avoid and stick to reality and stick to what works.
Right.
Um, so that is a big thing. That's a big
It's
thing that I realized I was doing for
yeah.
sure.
And here's the thing about making a decision. I we talked about touched on making the wrong choice. What if I make this choice and it's not right? Like what if I go through it and I'm not
Wrong choice.
successful
Yeah.
and maybe
Yeah.
I've made the wrong choice?
Mm-hmm.
You can always go back and do whatever the fuck you want. It is
Go back to the
never
drawing board.
exactly.
Yeah.
You can never be like, "Oh shit, I'm stuck on this path and now I have to
Mhm.
stay on it and die
For
on
the
this
rest.
path." You don't.
Exactly.
It's
You
not a real
shouldn't
thing.
die on one path if you don't want
Exactly.
to.
Exactly.
Yes.
You have
Preach.
the power to change your mind, walk the other way, choose another
Yes.
way. If that other way is no longer an option, back to the drawing board. Let's think about something else that I can do. Another
Yeah.
decision. You are
Yes.
never stuck to one path. You're not.
Mm-mm.
And
Mm-mm.
the sooner that you realize that, the sooner you can start making decisions for yourself, knowing that at any point you
Solely
can
for
change your
yourself.
mind.
Yeah. And, if it has to do with like financial stuff, and let's say you have a family, like, of
Hmm.
course, your decision has to have some sort of logic where, okay, I need to obviously
Right.
provide, like, we need to eat, like, at the base, we need to
Hmm.
eat.
Hmm.
But if you're stressful in your job and it's killing your mental health, it's
Hmm.
making you sick, it's making you depressed and anxious, then maybe you can try to recreate that income with different side jobs instead, different part-time jobs that are less stressful and give you more flexibility for your family while you're building something else, right? But there's always different ways around things.
Right.
If you have a base of, obviously you need financial stability, like especially if you have like a family,
Hmm.
then your decisions will go in tiers, I guess. Like decision 1, like what are we going to do to keep food on the table,
Hmm.
but I'm not going to I'm not going to destroy my mental health over it.
Right.
What is the way around that? And like bring up those questions. And, that can be when you go to the drawing board and create like a pros and cons list, right? But again, even when you don't, if it's like a sudden decision and they're like, oh, um, like you live in your story. If someone is like giving you a few minutes and you have to make a decision, it's like this way or this way.
Mm-hmm.
Our immediate reaction is,
Frozen.
frozen. Um, and we just know, like, our gut will tell us. And just fuck it, close your eyes and just choose something sometimes,
Flip
right?
a coin.
If it's not totally gonna
Yeah.
make you like homeless, or if it's not that important of a decision, you don't really have to give it much thought. Close your eyes and then just make a decision. If
Mm-hmm.
it's like, if you're buying something, like, that's a small practice, like, especially for me, that's actually a really good but small practice in something that's not so important, something that's not a life or death situation.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you overthinking it? That's me asking
Right.
myself, why are you overthinking it? I'm not going to die if I don't, if this is the wrong choice.
Yes.
Then you really at the core have nothing to worry about. Um, if your life is not at stake, if your family's life is not at stake, then it's not that important
Exactly.
at the core of it. So maybe for you that can look the same. Like, if you have anxiety over making decisions like that, literally close your eyes. Maybe don't even look at reviews. Fuck it. Just
Fuck
just say
it.
fuck it, and just choose something. And if it goes wrong, then you learned, and then you buy the other thing. Very small practice, but oh my god, it actually can help build the mental strength to
Yeah.
just start saying fuck it
Decide.
more.
Yeah.
Start saying fuck it a lot more.
I really need to
So
practice that. Um, yeah,
I'm
because
telling you,
so many
man.
times I'm like, I just cannot like make a decision.
Yeah.
It takes me forever to be like, just do it. And it is such a
Yeah.
rare occasion that I'll think of an idea and I'll act on it. This podcast being
Right.
one, and a few other
Yeah.
things where I've been like, yeah, that sounds like up my alley. And then I'll just make progress on it and start.
Drop it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's also really hard to then make a decision and then stick with it. That is the other part of deciding, is sticking with it. I mean, of course, until it no longer makes you happy. And at that point,
Exactly.
turn
Until it
around.
doesn't make you happy. Yeah.
Hmm. Or
That
if you
that's
can't,
that's where you have the
yeah,
choice. That's where you have the choice, where it's not like, there's so many failed businesses, but a lot of successful businesses started from like 2 or 3 failed businesses.
right.
Like, it's
Exactly.
not perfect the first time. Like, we always think we have to be right the first time. We're always paralyzed by that story. It's
Hmm.
fake. It's
Hmm.
not real. We're not going to be right the first time. Usually.
Right. And then also a part of that is like thinking everyone's gonna know that like I'm such a failure, or starting
Yeah.
from the
What people think.
beginning, I'm such a
Yeah.
baby, like they're gonna
Yeah.
think I'm immature or it's so cringe.
Yeah.
That's you thinking about everybody else still. That's you thinking about
Exactly.
everyone else before you. And we just can't do that
Exactly.
anymore. This is 2022, baby.
I
2023 around the
know.
corner.
I know. We've been suffering from COVID and all this shit. Like,
I
no, it's time to
know.
like get
It's
out of
put
that.
yourself first, put your happiness first. Fuck what
Yes.
everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're a grain of
It
salt
does
in
not
this entire
matter.
fucking galaxy. It
Honestly.
doesn't matter. It doesn't
It
matter what
really
they
doesn't.
think.
It really does not. And that is a big part of why we second guess our decisions. Well, what'll people think?
What will
Like, what is
people
my
think?
family going to think? Do they want me to do that? In the back of our minds, we're still thinking of other people and not solely. And that's why, like, the 60 days of me challenge is like, what do I need right now? What do I need
Right.
to work on right now that has nothing to do with anybody else? If
But you.
someone was going to, for example, like, before, I had this really like laser focus, which I crave. I really crave like a laser focus if I'm doing something. So me dedicating myself is like a big thing. And if someone was to say, oh, we're going over, and like at this time, like at, let's say, 10 a.m. when we're recording this podcast, the now me that I'm working on would be like, oh no, you can't come over. I'm so sorry. I have a block of time. Like, I need to work on this creative thing that I'm doing. I need to work on my podcast or whatever.
Mhm.
Whereas more passive me is like, oh yeah, okay. And then I'll tell you, oh, okay, well, let's just shift this thing to tomorrow or the next
Mhm.
week.
Mhm.
And that's the difference. Because when you're bowing down to other people all the time and you're a people pleaser, which is a big part of it, sometimes
Huge.
I'm a people pleaser.
Mhm.
Um, I remember my mom actually bringing that up a couple of years ago, and I didn't really know what she meant. She didn't say people pleaser, but she made it seem kind of iffy of like, oh, you always put other people
Other
before
people's
yourself, right?
first.
And it sounds kind of bad. We're like, well, yeah, I'm not, I care about other people, right?
Mhm.
But I see what she now I see what she was saying, because I have a really bad habit of literally just going for what the other person is wanting out of my time,
Mhm.
and versus me having those boundaries and making the decision to say no. I can't do that right now because I have
Mhm.
this to do. This is my decision. It's not going
Right.
out with you right now. It's actually this thing that I'm dedicated to,
And it's really,
because I have
really
a
hard
bad
to do that.
habit. It is. And that's why I'm practicing it now, because I had a really bad habit of doing that, of like, one or the other, one or the other. Am I going to postpone this? Am I going to, And like I said, those small decisions are actually the big ones down the line if it's long term.
Right.
So it's a practice for me of like, if Nick wants to hang out and I'm like, I'm going to the gym, I'm sorry, I can't hang out. I can't watch that movie right now. I got to go to the
Mhm.
gym for an hour. So it's me also just saying no to things, which I think we have a whole other episode on if you want to check that out, of, embrace saying no, and listening to yourself. It all has to do with this,
Yep.
and making the decision. And I don't know if any of you watch Gary Vee. He's kind of like, some people do, some people hate him.
I love
I'm okay.
Gary Vee.
I'm okay with him. Like, he speaks the truth and he's kind.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Like, he's a motivational type of person. He works in marketing, but he also has motivational speeches. And like, what he says too is like for him, he missed out on millions of dollars from an investment he chose not to make at the time, but he has no regrets. He chose
Mhm.
to grow something else that is also making him millions of dollars. But, just because he didn't make that investment, he has no regrets over it. He's like, well,
Mhm.
that was my decision at the time. I can't go back.
Yeah.
Like, you think what's best for you at the time, and you make that decision based on your current knowledge.
Mhm.
Maybe it was technically a wrong decision to not invest in Uber or whatever it was before it got big.
Mhm.
But who cares? The
Right.
past is the past.
You can't
And he
change it.
fucked up. Whatever.
But
He
now
fucked up
he's
and he
grown his
accepted it.
own
And
business
he's grown, but he made a different pathway for himself. And yeah,
and it worked
exactly.
out.
He grew, and it worked out for him, because even though he didn't do that and made millions, he's made millions doing something else that he
Mhm.
loves.
Mhm. Because he
It can still work out in the end,
right.
no matter what.
Because he made a decision for himself and he stuck by it and was dedicated to it until he built a little empire for him, or not little, built an empire for himself. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you guys are into Gary V, real name Gary Vaynerchuk, I believe,
Yeah.
he is awesome. Everything he
I love him.
says like really resonates with me.
He's very passionate
Um,
about what he says too.
I
I
have a
love that.
book too, actually.
Ooh.
Let me just dust it off.
Show and tell.
Why
Dust it
now is
off.
the time to crush it. Cash in on your passion by Gary Vee.
Oh, I want to get that book.
Yep. One of his first things that he
Yes.
wrote, a first book that he wrote. He was really young when he wrote it, but it still resonates with me. I read it every once in a while. It is really good.
He's so inspiring, because he has like taken years to grow where he is
Mm-hmm.
now in like his business, and now he's a motivational speaker. That wasn't his original intention. He's a businessman,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a marketer, but he has been around for way longer than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's old videos of him that I know he's probably posted on his social media, of him saying the same thing. He's very consistent in what he says and what he believes in.
He believes in his convictions. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's brought that this far, and I don't know, that's really admirable to see someone just that consistent.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's,
awesome.
again, I'll say that's what I was craving too, is that like feeling of being consistent with something, that dedication and consistency. I feel like making that big decision, that has to come with it. You have to be consistent with that one decision to see how it'll really turn out
Mm-hmm.
for you. If he wasn't consistent in what he was doing, he wouldn't be where he is, obviously.
Right.
And you know you have to have that feeling of conviction, like
Mhm.
you have to feel that power within yourself,
For yourself too. Like
for
that's
yourself.
that's for you and it's not for anybody else.
Yeah.
You just stay true to who you want to be and the
Yeah.
life you want to live. And that it seems so easy. Like, yeah, of course, like just stick with it, of course that's what's going to make you happy. But a
Yeah.
lot of daily things come at play and try to disrupt your path. It's up to
Definitely.
you to just stay on it and to stay focused. And
Definitely.
and really just try to meet your goal for yourself because that's who it's for and for your family and your future.
Yeah, we I mean, I saw a video this morning actually. It was super inspiring cuz sometimes even if you know something, just hearing it helps you actually realize something even
Mhm.
if you already knew it. But she was saying basically that like when we take moments of pleasure, our happiness will actually tend to go like this. It'll go downwards in a downwards picture it as a chart trajectory. Picture it as a little chart. When we're making these little decisions to choose moments of pleasure, um, ultimately it will go like this. And when we take those decisions to take temporary moments of pain, like I said, like working out or something, that trajectory is going to go up. Your
Mhm.
confidence is going to build. You're going to be stronger. You're going to feel good about yourself that you made the decision for you and you chose yourself over, anybody else. You're
Mhm.
choosing your health over anything else. And ultimately that will boost your happiness either
Mhm.
way. And that will help you live your authentic life. It's all
Right.
about big decisions, small decisions. Staying dedicated to those decisions too is very, very important, and staying consistent.
Mhm.
So with that,
It's just about finding the median within yourself. You know what I mean? A little bit of this, a little bit of that,
yeah.
everything in moderation.
Yep.
That's what I really stick by. I just think
Mhm.
too much of the things that cause you pleasure,
Yeah, too much pleasure
it,
moments. Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's going to go right downhill. It's not going to be pleasure for long.
Yeah.
But if you take a moment, a little here, a little there, you'll see
To work
yourself.
on yourself.
Work
Yeah.
on yourself, and that also means, doing those things that benefit you, not just pleasure. Obviously, you should do things that pleasure you as well, that make you
Mhm.
happy, um,
Mhm.
but you do have to also work if you wanna see any progress, and
Mhm.
that may not always be the funnest route, but it's the route that's gonna keep you moving forward and up. So and that's what we wanna
Yeah.
do with our lives, right? We wanna be
Yeah.
successful, and we want to see ourselves in the best aspect, you know what I mean? In the best light, and
Yeah.
for us to do that, it's really about finding that medium ground, I think.
Yeah, like we wanna do the most with our time while we're here on this earth. We have one life to live.
Mhm.
And, that's when the consistency comes into play, and that's actually, what kinda kicks me in the ass too. I'm like, like, "Hello, I'm gonna die one day." Like, I need to at least mean what I say. I need to, like, stick to my
Right,
guns
right. You need to be
and,
a woman of your
believe
word.
in myself. Yes, a woman of my word. So, y'all, that's what we, truly believe in, and we really want you to live your authentic life. We want to live our authentic lives, and feel free to follow us on our journey.
Yes.
So, with that, I wrap it up, and we
Yep.
hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. I'll
Thank you
talk to you
for
soon.
joining us. See you
Yes.
guys next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.